Hi, 8th graders. Welcome back. We are on day 3 of Unit 3. Unit 3 is going to take us from the time right after Reconstruction all the way through to today. We've learned about immigrants who came to Louisiana after Reconstruction, and we learned about the progressive movement. Today we're going to spend another day looking a little more closely at some of the causes that the progressives believed in. So yesterday we talked about grades. Your Edpuzzle scores are going into the grade book, and so are your exit ticket scores. If you're noticing that you're doing the Edpuzzle, you're doing all of the work, but you're running out of time at the end, pay attention to the clock 10 minutes before class ends. Open up your exit ticket and complete it, even if you haven't finished the Edpuzzle. And then if you have time, go back and work on your Edpuzzle. But this will make sure that you're getting exit ticket scores in the grade book. All right, if you haven't already, please complete your do now. And let's review. So this question is another question from your Unit 2 test. The short answer questions that we're about to answer are short answer questions that you should be thinking to yourself whenever you're answering a question like this. So let's get started. Question number 1 says, what is this chart showing? You should have looked at the title right down here at the bottom. It's showing us the number of Black people who were eligible to vote in Louisiana. What happened to the number of eligible Black voters between 1890 and 1900? You needed to look here at 1890 and see that there were 130,000 people who could vote. And then you had to look here at 1900 and see that there were about 5,000 eligible voters. And so the trend that we see is that it goes down. It goes down pretty dramatically. And the last question, what does it mean to disenfranchise someone? This was a vocabulary term last unit. If you don't know it yet, I recommend you pause the video now and write down the term disenfranchise. And the definition of that is to take away someone's right to vote. So we're seeing here, we want to ask ourselves, why are so few Black people eligible to vote all of a sudden? Have they been disenfranchised? So your question from the test, which of the following best explains the trend shown in the chart above? Try again on this question. And let's review the answer. So what is best explaining why so many Black people are no longer eligible to vote in Louisiana anymore? A says African Americans chose not to vote, and that's just not true. African Americans, when given the right to vote following the Civil War, were very politically active. B says due to the Great Migration, only about 1,000 African Americans remained in Louisiana. That's just not a true statement. So if we're eliminating incorrect options, that statement is not true. There are not only 1,000 Black people living in Louisiana today. C says voting across Louisiana became unpopular because citizens knew Huey Long was dishonest in elections. We've never said that before. That is not true. You can eliminate it because you know it's false. D is the correct answer. African Americans were disenfranchised by laws such as poll taxes and literacy tests. All right, read your paragraph as I read aloud. If you get something wrong, make sure you fix it. Yesterday we learned about the progressive movement. During this time, middle-class white Americans began to demand that the government do more to provide poor citizens and protect Americans from businesses. One thing progressives fought to eliminate was child labor. Progressives believed that children should be in school instead of work. Another thing they fought for was women's suffrage. This means to give the right to vote to women. Another cause of the progressives was the temperance movement. This was a movement to make alcohol illegal. So a couple of tough terms that you just have to memorize would be suffrage. To give suffrage to someone is to give them the right to vote. And temperance is the movement to end alcohol consumption. All right, 4 minutes for your hustle. Press next when you're done. And let's review our answers. Number 1 was antebellum. 2 is discrimination. 3 is sectionalism. 4 is union. 5 is secede. 6 is chattel slavery. 7 is PBS pinchback. 8 is Jim Crow laws. 9 is Confederacy. And 10 is segregation. Make sure you're studying your vocabulary. You're going to get a vocabulary quiz on Friday along with the quiz on the information we've learned this week. So today we are going to continue the same aim as yesterday. You don't have to write this down. We want to continue to analyze the motives and the impact of the progressive movement in Louisiana. So for today's notes, there's nothing that you have to write. However, a lot of questions are going to pop up on the screen to make sure that you're listening to what I'm saying. So we know early on the French come to Louisiana and create a colony, and they do it at the location of New Orleans because they wanted to be at the mouth of the Mississippi River to control trade. We know the Mississippi River is very important for trade. We know that Louisiana began as a French colony, and then the Spanish bought it from the French, and then the French bought it back from the Spanish, and then the Americans bought it from the French. Louisiana became an American state, but around in the 1850s, Louisiana, along with other southern states, seceded or left the Union. They left the country and formed their own country, the Confederate States of America. They fought the Civil War and lost, and so Louisiana became an American state again. We know that Reconstruction is the time after the Civil War when blacks gained new rights. And we know that after Reconstruction ended, southern states, particularly politicians and rich planters, created new laws and rules that limited the rights of black Americans, such as those like the literacy test and the poll tax that disenfranchised black voters. We know that shortly around the time Reconstruction is ending, a wave of Irish and Italian immigrants come to Louisiana, and they're treated pretty poorly. Yesterday we learned about the progressive movement. We know the progressive movement takes a good amount of time, about 30 years in American history. And it's around the time after Reconstruction, but before the Great Depression. Some of the things that people fought for in the progressive movements, progressives fought for women's suffrage, which again means the right for women to vote. They fought for the temperance movement, and that was the movement to end the sale of alcohol in America. Again, this was successful. We had an amendment that banned alcohol sales in America, but that was eventually repealed. It was removed. That's why people can buy alcohol today. And child labor laws. They wanted to end child labor. So a common theme we see with this is the progressives wanted the government to step in and say what was right and what was not right, and to make laws dictating how people live their lives. We see that with the temperance movement, the government saying that you can or cannot drink alcohol. And again, with the child labor movement saying if your child can or cannot go to work. Another big theme during the progressive movement is the idea of regulations. A regulation is a rule that is put in place. The government began to regulate industries like the oil industry. Oil was a big industry around the country, but especially in Louisiana. When unregulated, historically, oil companies will pollute the areas around them. They will release more noxious gases, and they also will do less to contain leaks, oil leaks. So progressives at this time wanted the government to regulate these oil companies, to give more control and rules and policies and guidelines to prevent them from doing things like polluting or taking advantage of the people in the area. So a lot's going on with the progressives. They're trying to make lives better for the average person, and they're also trying to prevent big companies and utilities from taking advantage of the land and the people who live around it. But one thing we did learn yesterday is that progressives, because most of them were white and middle class, were not working to help Black Americans. So they did very little to improve the lives of Black Americans after Reconstruction. All right, you have 2 questions. Answer those on your paper. Or I'm sorry, they're going to pop up on your screen. All right. So we're going to do one document together. Flip your paper over to the first document. You're going to read your document silently as I read it aloud. And as I'm reading, be thinking about how this passage helps you answer the question. So let's just look at question 1. It says, based on paragraph 1, what made Jean and Kate famous? So let's see what this document is. This document is an excerpt from Jean and Kate Gordon, New Orleans social reformers. Okay, so these are people from New Orleans. They were social reformers. They wanted to make things better for people. 1898, 1933, and that's during the Progressive era. It says this is an excerpt from an article that appeared in the Journal of Louisiana Historical Association in 1983. All right, so it's a secondary source, but it's from Louisiana about these people in Louisiana. So let's read the first paragraph. And I think by the first paragraph, we actually have to read both of these 2. And we're trying to figure out what made them famous. Jean and Kate Gordon's lives of public service began with club and charity activities. It was New Orleans' drainage problems that brought the Gordons into the political limelight. You see this little 1 right here? That means that I'm going to get limelight defined. That means public attention. So it was the New Orleans drainage problems that brought the Gordon sisters into public attention. It let people notice them. Reform elements in the city pushed for the creation of a sewage and water board. In 1899, they finally got the matter as far as a public vote. This was the only election until the passage of the 19th Amendment in which Louisiana women, at least those who owned property, voted. Oops. So let's go back to the question, what made Jean and Kate famous? All right, let's review. Yeah, so what made them famous is that they fought against New Orleans drainage problems. That brought them into the political limelight or public attention. So let's read number 2. Based on paragraphs 2 and 3, what cause did Jean and Kate support that helped them stand for women? So after they've dealt with drainage, what is the thing they were passionate about and they fought for to protect women? So we're going to read paragraph 2 and 3. That's this one and this one here. It says, Kate heard a lecturer urge women to stand for women. Later she remembered it was a great epoch. That's a period of time. It's usually marked by important events. So this was a great moment in her life. I saw how women could help women. All right, so let's see. How does she want to help women? The Gordon sisters became active suffragists. Ooh, that word suffragist again. Remember, suffrage means to give someone the right to vote. And we know if they're talking about women, they're probably talking about giving women the right to vote. In 1913, they organized the Louisiana State Suffrage Association. The Gordons held fast to their particular opinions on the need to limit the franchise or the right to vote. When interviewed on the effects of a decade of women's suffrage in 1930, Miss Kate declared, "It has made men respect the opinion of women, and I've never expected it to revolutionize character. What we need now is selective suffrage, the privilege of the ballot only for those who are normal and fit." So, how are they helping to stand with women? Answer the question. All right, let's review. They're helping stand for women by fighting for women's suffrage or the voting rights for women. And then finally, based on Ms. Kate in paragraph 3, how did earning the right to vote change how men treated women? And if you don't remember, check in the very last paragraph to find this answer. And let's check that answer. How did getting the right to vote change how men treated women? They said that men began to respect the opinions of women more. And that makes sense because now women are making up 50% of the voting population. All right, source 2, I'm going to guide you a little bit with it, but you're going to do most of the work on your own. So you have a reading. It's from the work of the Anti-Saloon League. So question number 1 has us thinking about that. What the heck is an anti-saloon league? So a saloon was a place where people gathered to drink alcohol, like a bar, and anti means to be against something. Based on that information, what was the Anti-Saloon League? An anti-saloon league is a group of people against saloons. They were likely against all alcohol consumption. So if you're against a saloon or a bar, you're going to be against people going there to drink. If you're against people going places to drink, you're probably against drinking. Question number 2, what does it mean that the Anti-Saloon League used agitation to ban alcohol? You're going to read now paragraphs 1 and 2 to get that answer. I'm sorry, just paragraph 1. Go. And let's review. So agitation, that means that they use protests and demonstrations to get alcohol banned. So if you look here, this was a really easy one because it has agitation written right here with that 1. And when I look down, it says agitation means activism through protests or demonstrations. Number 2, what does it mean that the Anti-Saloon League used agitation to ban alcohol? Sorry, that we already did number 2. Number 3, based on paragraph 2, how did most of Louisiana respond to the temperance movement? So read paragraph 2 and answer the question. All right, let's review. So most of Louisiana responded pretty positively to the temperance movement. They talk about how 30 out of 50 of the parishes banned alcohol, and a lot of other parishes had very few saloons in them. So Louisiana was all about that temperance movement. They did not want to have a lot of alcohol. Louisiana was a pro-temperance state. All right, for source 3, flip your papers over. You're going to read question 1 and paragraphs 1 and 2 to get that question, and then answer question 1. All right, let's review question number 1. What political party was John Parker part of? He was part of the Progressive Party. Read question number 2 and then paragraphs 3 and 4 to get the question correct. All right, let's review number 2. Oh well. Number 2, women's suffrage. Some of the things that he fought for were women's suffrage, like many other progressives, ending child labor, getting income tax, protecting the environment, and increasing state regulations of oil and gas pipelines. We talked about that in the notes. He wanted to regulate the oil and gas to make them less likely to pollute the earth or take advantage of people. And so how did the oil and gas companies feel about this? They usually did not like it. If there are more rules, it means they're going to make less money. And so that made them unhappy about the progressives' call to regulate oil and gas utilities. So number 3 has been answered for you. Fill it in. All right, and one more source. Use the source information in the photograph to answer questions 1 and 2. Press next after you've answered all the questions. All right, we're not going to review that one. That was about child labor. Now we're going to close out of this Edpuzzle and go to our exit ticket, Progressives Part 2. You're going to use your readings from today to answer the question, so don't put your readings away. You have 10 minutes to answer this. Talk to you guys later. Bye.